Well, it's time to find out who will be joining the first 8 teams in the XGS Spring Burst. It's qualifier number 2. My name is Nomical, being joined by It's Goose, and we have some exciting competition coming at you this weekend. 3 days, 54 teams narrowed down to 4. Goose, I believe you and I are both very excited for this weekend.
Yeah, I'm excited. This is also the last qualifier, so any teams that don't make it through this 3-day weekend, that's it for at least this tournament. I'm very excited. You have probably a better mix, in my opinion, than last weekend. Not to shoot a shot at last weekend, but you got hub stacks, T2 teams, T3 team. You got everything, and I'm just really excited to see what we get here.
Yeah, we've got a wide variety of teams. We've got pub stacks that were formed just hours ago to teams that have been playing together for months on end. And speaking of teams that have been playing together for months on end, our first game of the first round of Swiss tonight is going to be Outlast versus Wildcard Aces. And it's going to be a clash of titans. These teams met in Element 2, and they both did very well for themselves, although probably not as well as some of them might have hoped. We'll take a look at their rosters in just a moment. But Goose, I mean, you have this Outlast team who finished top 8. They have to be the favorites coming into this, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're just one of the more solid teams. You have Zonky, you got Austin, you got Bipolar, you got Ryder, you got Love. Or Yov. They're just one of the more consistent teams because they've been playing together so long. Not only on this roster, just they're all friends. They all know each other. And for wild card, you got Riot, you got Teddy, you got Bry. Just overall, two of probably the more consistent teams. No matter who wins today, you'll probably continue to see these teams in the higher ranks of this Swiss format this weekend.
Yeah, and just looking at these 2 teams, they met last week actually in the first qualifier, and it actually went the way of Outlast. They played and it was a 7-3 victory for them. They unfortunately fell just a little bit short in the closed qualifier portion to the teams such as SLB, Coastal Gaming, Wasted Talent, and Exosiris, who all did qualify through. So these 2 teams are looking to start off their journey towards joining those teams with a win. And speaking of that, we'll take a look at where we're going to be playing as we have the map bands ready. They played on Cafe last time. Where do we think they're going to go this time?
Not, I would say not Cafe. Clubhouse being banned, that is very interesting. Nighthaven, kind of, what somewhat actually Cafe being banned by Outlast themselves, which they won. It's a little curious, but we're gonna be going to Chalet nonetheless. A very exciting map. And honestly, I honestly really love the map, not only just, in general with its layout, but just in the current meta, it could go either way. If you've been watching SI, we are in somewhat of a more defender sided meta. It's a really hard to attack. But with Chalet, what we've been seeing recently in the highest tier of play is it honestly could go either way. I wouldn't say it's necessarily 50-50, but you got some games where it's like a 7-1 half or a 7-1 game, and other times it's a lot closer going into overtime.
Yeah, and just like you mentioned, the bands and the defenders sided. Solus and Azami were 2 of the top band defenders last week in the qualifier, and I feel like we'll have to see that again this week. Of course, Ying and Dokubi nowadays are your standard attacks as well. Just looking ahead to it, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a Solus band. It's one of our stronger maps, and I believe we are ready to get into the game. So we will head into that. It's going to be Cholet, like we said. It's going to be Outlast versus Wildcard. Let's get into it. Goose, what are we thinking? Do we see that Solus and Azami band that I mentioned?
Azami, I think. Solus, I don't know. I my thing is, what are they going to do with two around? Because if you ban him, this is probably one of his most useful maps and one of the more easier maps to use him on, which in turns makes it one of the more difficult maps to attack on. So if you ban him out, that's going to remove a really big rock in your way. But wildcard banning Dokubi first, it's somewhat typical. I wouldn't say she's been one of the more banned attackers as she can aid in that roam clear, especially on a map like Chalet when roam clearing is essential.
Well, we're heading into the second of the attacker bands, and I believe we'll see the Ying. There it is. Ying,
Yeah.
like I said, one of those standard bands. These 2 teams playing it very standard to what we like to see usually. And as far as defenders, I like to think that we will see that Azami here. Although we could see maybe a curveball here as well, maybe a Fenrir, maybe a Mira. Of course, it's a very powerful map for Mira as well. You played a lot on
Yeah, I
VAR.
definitely think we see a Fenrir. But so, yep, that's Solo Span coming in. I think it's just honestly how the teams want to play. If you have a difficulty with drones and utility being shot down, Solus is just one of those mans you have to do. Because if that's a problem you already have, the Solus on top of that just makes it infinitely harder. But Solus being banned out, that won't be as much of a problem. And the last ban will be that a zombie ban, as we talked about. Just such a powerful operator, especially for that actual library hold, whether you're on bar or any site. That library hold is essential to the whole entire defense of this map.
Well, we'll go ahead and load into round number one. It's going to be a starting off on bar. It's going to be Wildcard on the defense as well. Just looking at the operator lineups for the moment, we do have that Fenrir. Fenrir, of course, one of the more banned out defenders, like I mentioned, a very strong operator in the current meta just because of the fact that you can use Fenrir, those Dreadnought mines, to cut off a lot of choke points and give information over to your team. And of course, remember, you can rotate them around as well. You get 5 of them and you can place them in all different spots and kind of dedicate them to where the attack is coming from later in the round if the Fenrir is still alive. But of course, you do also have that Valkyrie on the board. Probably one of the better maps for Valkyrie, I would think. So many different areas you can put those black eye cams to get information towards your team. And even really just looking at it, you've got the Frost as well for that kind of surprise aspect if Outlast isn't too keen to drone.
Yeah, going to bar gaming for our first. This is one of the more picked sites, as basement actually more recently, before I guess you could say in recent months before SI, it was more of an attacker sided site, but now it actually tends to be, you know, a little bit more even. But Riot bringing out that Frost, it's going to be very crucial. But Fractured actually trying to spot peek, get a pick early, but he's actually punished for it. You know, pretty typical. He's just gonna waste about 20 seconds, you know, try to make Wildcard a little, you know, put on the fence, you know, just make it a little bit uncomfortable. But for now, not a lot going to happen. But as I said before, we're seeing players like Riot with that Frost, Teddy bringing that Warden, and it does look like we're going to be having a laundry defensive site extension. You know, this is very crucial to not only the entire map, but games and bar itself, and it's just going to be up to Outlast, or not Outlast, but Wildcard rather, to see how long they can hold this, because as soon as you give up control, that is when you start to hit the site.
Yeah, just looking at it for the moment, you see a lot of that emphasis being placed on holding up above in library, and Outlast are reading into that as well, dedicating a lot of their focus to that library clear, that library push. You saw Vapoa outside on the library balcony trying to take an engagement with the player sitting on mezzanine. And of course, well, you need to have multiple angles to your attack. You've got to have that split theory coming into play. And so you see Yup just working his way into dining, trying to create some pressure, trying to create a cutoff onto 45. Not going to be able to find anybody for the moment, as it doesn't look like there's anybody playing on that side of the map. Although there could be a roamer coming later on in the round for Wildcard that he might find himself running into. And one of those Twitch drones going to get spotted out and destroyed by the Valkyrie. And Outlast seem, for the moment, to just be stalling out a little bit, lacking a little bit of a spot to get into the map. They don't really have anybody inside the building other than you. You still see players sitting outside on K9. But like I said, they haven't really cleared out any of these positions. They don't have much to work with at the moment. And of course, with the attack running out of time, that's going to be very crushing to them later in the round.
Teddy holding a very powerful position. If they don't clear him out, he could just completely shut down this attack. And so far, Outlast hasn't necessarily found an answer, but it actually looks like they may go for a quick plan, but it doesn't matter because Capsule and Teddy come out big with 2 picks. And now Outlast, with just 40 seconds left, find themselves in a 3v5 and now a 2v5.
Well, make it a 1v5. A flawless round is still very much a possibility here. It's all up to you. We saw him earlier on in the round working his way into dining. He's rotated back outside, giving up that map control that he had initially gained. He's going to work himself into closet, and he's going to get swung by Bree. A flawless round, and what a statement from Wildcard to start things off as they win their first bar defense, and Rye gets swung backwards as he gets that final kill. Still excellent gunplay by him. And well, Wildcard, they're looking good. They want revenge for last week's game.
Wildcard setting the tempo for this defense. No matter how you spin it, this map is still defender-sided. The whole entire meta is defender-sided. So, Wildcard winning out their very first site and defensive hold, and especially in a very convincing fashion, that being flawless. If you want to look back at the round, Outlast didn't necessarily do anything. Wildcard had control for the entire round. As we saw, around midway through, Outlast had complete control of the back half of the map towards Kitchen. But that was because Wildcard gave it to them. Wildcard just kind of played back and was like, okay, you know what, we feel comfortable. We're going to give you this map control because you're not necessarily taking it from us. And Outlast didn't take anything. And because of that, when they actually got that map control, they didn't necessarily know what to do with it. And they kind of, floundered a little bit. And when they actually went for the execute, they didn't have intel. They didn't know where a lot of the wildcard players were playing. And because of that, Wildcard completely just snuffed them out because Wildcard had complete control. They knew where Outlast took because they gave it to them. Because of that, it was a flawless round.
Yeah, just looking ahead to round number 2 now, you saw for a moment there that mirror window inside of dining. This is something a lot of teams do nowadays, is they'll extend up into dining and then have a roamer on the 3rd floor to try and create a little bit of pressure on the attacking team, try to get some of that aggression going out. And for the moment, it's going to be Capsule. He's just roaming up with the Warden. Of course, Warden, a little bit of a slower operator now, not someone you typically see roam all that often, but it does have the MPX and the 1.5 scope, which is rumored to potentially be leaving. Nothing confirmed yet, and I'm very interested to see how that affects the pro scene and how that affects the way teams try to attack and defend. Just kind of see how that actually will be changed when the season reveal comes out. But Capsule's going to start working his way back down. He's got that deployable shield in his back pocket. Where was that from? As he ate some damage. Not exactly sure from where. Might have been the player on the rappel, and indeed it looks like Vapoa was the one to deal that damage to Capsule. Just not much engagement coming out so far from the side of Wildcard. They're trying to play this together. They're trying to play it well, but they're going to lose the first pick. It's going to be you to get him off the board, and that's going to give full solar control over to the side of Outlast, and their next task is going to be to clear out Bree and try to make it a little bit easier for them to get this buck into position to work the vertical angle inside the fire.
Yeah, complete contrast from last round. Outlast actually taking that first initial pick. And not only that, they almost take the life of Fractured. Fractured is all alone. A very solo hold or defensive hold. But as I say that, Teddy's actually on the stairs, but it doesn't matter because Vipoa just completely shuts it out. And now Austin follows it back. And now we're seeing Outlast completely just take control of this game. In this round, they've completely changed out how they've approached this overall push in roam clear than they did in the first initial round. Wildcard being a little bit, I wouldn't necessarily say too aggressive, but just overstaying their welcome on that roam, and because of that, Outlast punishes it with a minute left. Outlast is now in a 5v2 with all the cards in the right place to take site and plant.
The interesting thing about that is they haven't even used any of their hard breach, and there's the first kill back for Wildcard, as Riot will get another one, Bri with another one as well, but now it's all up to Riot. Riot with the ace, the only hard breach remaining will find that kill, but Riot's trying to make it a little bit better for him, is it's now down to a 2 versus 1, low HP for the smoke, but he does have all 3 toxic babes in his pocket, so he can't deny this plant. Riot is going to have to get into position to try and get this down as soon as possible. Austin will have to be really good on the cover, and of course, who would you want covering the plant than a flank launch operator, as Ryber will work his way in? It's going to be Austin who has the perfect cutoff on split, but the smokes are going to come out just a little bit too late. The plant is going to go down, and I don't even think they're going to do any damage. No, Ryber still full HP, and there's 2 attackers left on full health. Austin has the perfect read, and, well, Outlast will get the second round. They'll tie us up at 1-1, and a much better attack from them than what we saw in the first round.
It was better, I do agree, but a problem I'm continuing to see from Outlast, and I don't want to take too much away from them. Their opening rounds, their first half of the rounds, when they go into the map, they drone, they roam clear. It's great. The first round, they didn't have too much to actually go against. The second round, when they actually were being contested with 3 players on the roam, they dealt with it quickly and efficiently. But the problem I'm continuing to see is their drone economy and how they set up their intel and really finding out where those last players are in that last minute to 30 seconds on that actual site execute. It's looking, I wouldn't say flawed, but it's looking a little uncomfortable. It doesn't look like they're comfortable. It doesn't look like they necessarily know what they want to do once they have all their cards in the right place. And in that round, they're in a 5v2. So when they lost those 3 players, they were in a much better situation when, rather first round when they were going into the site with only 3 players, 2 being picked off outside of the site. But Outlast, nonetheless, a great answer back to Wildcard. But I do really want to see them, pick up the slack on that late round execute.
Well, there's not too many operators better in the game than IQ than actually finding gadgets and picking up information as to where potential players could be. You can use the IQ gadget to gain so much information on so many of these gadgets, such as the Fender Dreadmods. You've got the Kate Electro Claws to find, and you've got the Valkyrie cameras. All can be spotted by that IQ. A very good read from the side of Outlast, and hopefully Youth stays along stays alive, I should say, long enough to actually utilize that utility as well. You do have the Thermite being brought in. We haven't seen much Hard Breach being used by Outlast so far. Thermite, of course, died first for their team last round. But of course, with it being on kitchen, you're going to need a lot of hard breach. You're going to need to work your way in office, as well as open up any potential hatches and the main breach into dining. But that's later on. Right now, Outlast needs to get their way in. They need to start gaining map control, and they need to clear out this top floor. And you see Vipoa and Rai both in position to try and hold cutoffs and try and force out these top floor defenders. They're making good time so far. And like you said, they have done a much better job of utilizing their drones. Only 3 destroyed, and they've got plenty still to work with.
Wildcard, yet again, like the last round, doing a very, putting all their utility, putting all their eggs in one basket, that basket being extended hold upstairs, and you need to do that for this site. I really love how they have it set up, but if you can see, you have players on Outlast sitting on windows, you have that Zofia sitting on, I believe, trophy window, so if players from Outlast do decide that they're getting contested too much and they want to rotate back down, players from Outlast may be ready to cut them off and actually shoot them down. But Bry and his teammates upstairs are not falling off too quick, trying to keep control of the top floor, because as soon as they lose that, it's going to be really difficult to deal with that vertical. But with about a minute left, it looks like we're going to come down to the last 30 to 40 seconds in a 5v5 situation.
Yeah, so far no deaths, but Outlast have made good work into actually trying to gain themselves access to the site. You saw they got the dining wall open, they got the upstairs mezzanine wall open as well. You've tried to take a fight with the player inside of piano. That's going to be Bry. That's going to be who you want to try and hold that spot out as well. The ward perfectly situated to try and deal with that. Teddy trying to take a long-range engagement with the buck, but no, it's going to be Pluto on the jump out, and there's a second one. Bryce jumps out of the piano window, and it's falling apart for Outlast. Down to a 5 versus 2 now as Rai's been down inside a trophy. Rai to finish him off, and Outlast are running out of time. They're running out of options. They need to work their way into the site, but without top floor control, it's going to be so hard for them to do that and actually get the plant down. But Zonky is good enough to try and bring it back a little bit into a 2 versus 3 now. There is a player on the hatch that is going to be worrisome for Austin. If he decides to go for this plant, the player can drop and finish him off easily. Zonky, his coverage is dead. It's all up to Austin. He's out of time. Teddy drops, finds the final 2, and Wildcard will retake the lead.
That top floor hold from defense is so hard to deal with. I think, in my opinion, it is the definition of just what makes this meta so hard to attack, is that top floor hold above kitchen. And we saw Outlast having a lot of trouble with it. But it was a trouble that was, in my opinion, not in the fault of the meta, but themselves. As you can see, I believe it was the player on the side of Vipoa going in his buck, just didn't necessarily have a drone at all when he initially pushed. And again, it's that, I wouldn't say late round execute, because it was around the, the mid round a little bit after, but it's like once they have their overall attack set up, they have trouble actually pushing a very hard position. While that position wasn't exactly sight, they did get access to it. They needed to clear upstairs. Clearing upstairs on kitchen is, in my opinion, a lot more important than actually pushing site, because we see teams, just not attack or try to even attack upstairs and just kind of ignore it and go for sight. And after that, it just is almost never successful, because holding above on kitchen is just so powerful, so strong. It's almost all vertical, especially with the hatch right in the middle of a site where you gotta plant the bomb. If you don't get that top vert, it's just, in my opinion, impossible. If you're going against a good team that can play vert very well, they have like range, I guess you could say, if you don't get that top vert, it's basically impossible to win. Outlast having, in my opinion, the first round when they just have a really big trouble dealing with an actual setup that is set up for them.
Well, this is a little bit of a surprise to me personally, because the fact that this same Outlast team beat this Wildcard team just last week, 7-3 on Cafe. Maybe Outlast is just struggling on the attack. Maybe it's just the fact that Outlast isn't as good as Chalet as they are Cafe. We'll have to see as the game progresses a little bit. And, well, one new thing about this round as we head back to Bar is going to be Rai playing on the floor as a very good utility clear operator. And they're going to need him, as last time they struggled to clear out the utility on Mezzanine. And really, it was the deciding factor of the round. They couldn't clear out Library, and they just stalled out as the round progressed. Now, You've working his way into the basement to try and have this cutoff on the Capcan. They know that he's down here, and they've got 2 players dedicated to try and clearing him out. Question is, how quickly can they do it, and can they do it without sacrificing bodies? There you go. You finds the opening pick on a capsule, and that's going to create a lot of openings for Outlast, as now they have full basement control. They need to get the top floor control, however. Otherwise, they're not going to have a very good time if they try to go for a plant.
It's that top floor control we keep mentioning again, and Teddy in the exact same position he was in the first round. He wasn't pushed out, and with halfway into the round, it doesn't look like he's been, honestly, been tried to be pushed out from Outlast. They send in one Flores drone, but it's immediately shot, and nothing is followed up whatsoever. No players trying to approach his position. You have Vipoa outside of Library balcony, but I mean, he's alone. He has a drone on him. It looks like he may just try to jump in and swing on him, but it's just not going to work. And while you do have those flashes, it's warding. I mean, the flashes aren't going to affect him whatsoever if he can time his thing. He's just honestly just burning time and utilities. You can see he's shooting Flores drones, he's shooting regular drones, and they haven't done anything. They've honestly done is gone capsule, and while that's good, it hasn't resulted of anything. And while they're trying to actually pressure Teddy actually swinging on the door, but it may not actually result in a death. But no, Teddy slips away just in front of him. It's Fry with 2 big kills in Outlast. Those crossfires not working out for them. With 30 seconds left, they now find themselves in a 3v4 and no vertical control in their favor.
Yeah, and it's not looking good for them as well. They have still so much utility in their pockets. They have all the smokes. They have so many flashes. They didn't even use the grenades from you before he died. They have library control now, but they don't have mezzanine control, so they can't drop in. They can't give this up. And there's a nice swing from Teddy. A triple from Brian the round, and it's all up to Zonky. He's working his way up the main stairs. He'll find one, but it's just an impactless frag at this point. And there you go. Bry with a 4K in that round. And Wildcard win 2 in a row. They're up 3-1.
I mean, Outlast can just not deal with this top extended library hold. I mean, I don't want to say they can't deal with and they can't really approach extended roams and holds on vertical, because they did it the second round. They dealt with it perfectly. They immediately got that player 30 seconds of the round on the top of Solarium, but Teddy just, they're not throwing enough utility. While they are throwing utility, it doesn't result in anything. They have a Flores drone. They send in a couple, I believe 1 or 2 regular traditional drones, but they don't have a player behind it. They don't have any flashes. They don't have any nades or anything to actually result. And all that really did in that round was waste time and utility. While they did get the first pick, they just didn't actually try to initially push towards the site until they actually lost a player and they were forced to. It kind of just feels like there was trying to rely on these crossfires and trying to pick up these roamers rotating back to site too much. And when Wildcard doesn't give it to them, they don't do anything. They don't try to take control until it's the last 30 seconds. They're down a player and they're forced to. Outlast not necessarily doing what they need to, and honestly, while it is defense, overall they're just looking a little bit sloppy. They could get, a 3-3 half. It's still very possible, but Wildcard looking to take at least a 4-2 half here.
Yeah, and well, they are only 1 round away from doing that. They've looked very good, and a lot of that does have to do with the fact that Outlast, like you said, they've been doing a good job in the start of the rounds, but then they don't use the utility. They don't actually find the kills in the late round when it matters, and then they just end up stalling out like we've seen so many times before. But they're making good progress now. They've got the main breach open into Snowmobile, and they have a lot of utility. They're starting to gain information as well. They've done a good job with their drones. I don't know if they know about how big this roam presence is from Wildcard, however. They can see 2 players on the top floor just sitting inside of library, or at least near library. But for the moment, they don't have a truly dedicated force to try and deal with it. But that's a nice kill through the barricade. Austin with the opener for Outlast. Wildcard now on the back foot. They might have to start falling back and start giving up this top floor control, as there's only currently 1 player on site. You've got 3 just situated on the mid floor.
What is Tubarao doing? Like, I don't like to say a player's not doing anything, but he's not using any of his utility. He's just sitting upstairs, and wow, Riot, as he drops down the hatch, he throws up a C4 and kills the buck of Vipoa that was shooting him. But as I said before, Tubarao not even really using his utility, upstairs roaming, not even really denying drones. Not to say he needed to. I mean, while they did drone, they didn't really result in anything aside from Bry being taken out, but Vipoa just, that was, I wouldn't even say that was an unlucky kill. That was a really big brain play. Just really nice mechanical play by Riot. But with 1:15 seconds left, Wildcard, all 4 of their last defenders are on the bomb site. Wall is open. You have vertical control. You have relatively a lot of drone utility. You have 5 drones left. But this is the problem. We continue to see that Outlast just cannot get these walls open and cannot get any intel. This Tubarão actually coming into play in the last couple seconds. This is going to be really difficult because while the walls will eventually get opened, aside from that wall with the mute on it, it's just going to waste so much time. And heading here with the C4, this surely result in a big kill. And while it does result in a Yub being down, not a whole lot more than that.
Yeah, Yev being down there puts it back into a wildcard man advantage, and with just 30 seconds left, once again, the theme with Outlast is they get a good start to the round and then they stall out again. We need to see them finish this round off with a good execute. Flashes are going to start raining and they're going to try to force these wildcard players out of position. But Yuve is good for one before they finally trade it back into a 3 versus 3. The swing for the M590 is just too strong, and Outlast choked once again in the late round. And I believe, I was going to make a point before the action started, that the Buck dying first for Outlast had a lot to do with it because of the fact that they couldn't play the vertical game, and it ended up really being that costly factor, so they had to just funnel themselves in through choke points. Wildcard looking really good on the defenses, finding those impact frags when they need it, and hanging on when the round gets down to the dying moments.
I want to give one thing to Wildcard. Initially in that first round, I thought Tubarão was just being an idiot. Playing upstairs, not using his utility, and just getting a wall open. But actually, what he did in that round was, well, he was in the position to deny and slow down the initial attack in roam clear from Outlast. He didn't need to because Outlast didn't really throw too much at him. But what he did was he saved his utility, and then he understood. Not only did he understand, but Wildcard as a whole understood that, okay, if we get one pick, even if it's traded, we just fall back to site. Outlast has a horrible track record of just actually trying to get a site execute down and finish it. And because of that, Tubarão was like, okay, I'm just gonna save my utility till the last minute. And that's exactly what he did. He denied those walls. While one did get open, it denied so much time. And not only did Outlast not have time initially at all, it didn't have a plan. And with that time wasted, it put them in such an uncomfortable spot that did result in a win, but fractured. He spawn picked in the first round, tried to get it, and eventually in the 5th round or 6th round, it finally resulted in a pick onto Bipoa. That is now your IQ gun. It is a really big pick. While he isn't going too hot on the scoreboard, that utility IQ gives, especially with a Valkyrie on the board, it's just so immense. That is a great pick.
Yeah, and especially even when Outlast has had the man advantage, they've struggled to get into the building. They've struggled in the late rounds. What are they going to do now that they're in the man disadvantage? I feel like this is going to slow them down even more. They're going to stall out even worse than they have been. And without the IQ, like you said, they're going to have even less information. They still do have their drones, but I haven't seen them be using them a ton. Of course, as I say that, Zonky gets onto a drone and spots out one of those Valkyrie cameras. So the IQ being dead isn't going to be as big of a problem for the moment as we think it might have been. And Outlasters started to take top floor control, but they haven't got any control where it truly matters. They haven't got any control over the site. They need to get into that area of piano quickly, but there's going to be a lot of players on Wildcard to try and slow them down. The question is, can they get the main wall open? Can they actually work together to try and refrag each other and force these players back down to the site?
I was about to say, Austin, why are you not using your utility? But he does eventually use his utility. It does push back Pluto. He's been in this position all game, but Teddy just hiding. There is a player on Repel. He could actually pick up a really big pick here if he is not identified. And yes, here comes that player on window. Teddy, can you find it? No, you can't! It's actually Austin to wedge his way through this defense to get a big first pick. But right below with that, C4 is in a very good position to get a pick, but the wall's open. It's going to make it really difficult. And speaking of difficulty, Fracture is going to have a difficulty as he's now dead.
Yeah, I was going to mention that there are still 2 players upstairs for Wildcard. There is actually still one. Raj is situated inside a bathroom, I believe, so I don't even know if Outlast know that they don't have full top floor control. They could find themselves flanked here very quickly, but there's the kill on a Riot. It's a 4 versus 2. This has probably been the best attack we've seen from Outlast besides the one that they won. A swing comes in. It's a 3 versus 1 now as Cap is all that's left for his team. The hopes of Wildcard of getting a 5-1 half rest on him surviving 30 seconds. C4 is not going to find anything. The flashes raining in, but it's not going to be where he's at. The hatch drop is going to have to come in soon, and I don't even know if Outlast have the diffuser. I don't believe that they do. And here comes the swing, a nice shot from Cap, so he's good for 2. A triple, it's a 1 versus 1, but no! Austin in the 1 versus 1 wins the round for Outlast, and they are able to salvage this half and get a 4-2. They head to the defense, and it's not as dire as it could have been.
Oh, most definitely not. Going into a defense down 1-5, even you're on defense, 1-5 is just horrible. Your opponent is just 2 rounds away, but now they're not 2 rounds away from overtime, but not a regulation win. Outlast getting that last round. And that first half was just amazing. Honestly, that was probably one of their best first halves in this series so far in this map. Props to them. But yet again, that late round utility was non-existent. They just didn't drone that player out, and because of that, while he was in a 3v1, he was allowed to just sit in a corner and just get 2 kills because they didn't know where his position was. You did have a player on trophy window identifying, okay, the last player on the side of Wildcard most likely will be playing around here, but they didn't know his exact position, and because of that, he's almost resulted a clutch 1v3 win. And honestly, that initial last gunfight, that 1v1 gunfight, could have gone Wildcard's way. We could be up 5-1 right now. That last round just depended on, a 50-50 lucky gunfight win for Outlast. Definitely not what you want your 1 out of your 2 round wins to fall down to, but nonetheless, Outlast now on defense, a comfortable defense, as they're now only down 2-4. A Wildcard still in a very good position.
And just another point to make about the round for Outlast, that could be the difference between them making the close calls and potentially not even making close calls and having a chance to play for Spring Burst. As it's unfortunate that these 2 teams have to play in round 1. You wanted to see both these teams last as long as possible because they both made close, I should say, and did pretty well last week. And remember, there's 54 teams playing in this qualifier. You're going to need as many wins as possible if you want to make it to close qualifiers because only 16 teams out of the 54 make it. So if whichever one of these teams loses is going to lose and have a lot harder of a time. And look at that, all of the Evil Eyes being captured by the Brava. Now Riot has so much control, and Austin lost most of his utility to 1 Brava drone. That's going to be big.
Yeah, the amount of utility that Riot just got in the span of 50 seconds is insane. The fact that Outlast just allowed that to happen, that's going to definitely come back to bite them in the back. If Wildcard actually does have a very successful first round push and actually can clear out these rummers upstairs. But it's definitely going to be dependent about this. Zonky wedging himself, supported by Poa. Only 1 player inside, actually 2 players inside the library, but they're having a problem clear these players out, but it doesn't matter. Bry, Capsule's following it up, and now Zonky's all alone in this position. They're well aware of his position. Teddy waiting for the swing, but he's not ready. Zonky actually going to be going back downstairs. I like how Zonky played that position. And wow, Austin just there and ready to go. Honestly, the players from Outlast in these really awkward positions, and they feel comfortable. I really love how they can trust each other, feel comfortable, and because of that, it will resulted in 2 answer backs, and now the man count is evened out 3-3.
The good news for Wildcard is, however, that they still have their hard breach on the board. They still have the execute utility that they need. They've still got those smokes as well. They didn't even shoot the default camp, however, so they've been getting a lot of information fed against them by Outlast, and Wildcard are gonna have to try and force the issue with just 30 seconds left. It's gonna be a little bit harder for them because of the fact that they still have 3 toxic babes left in the pocket of Rai. They are going to have to be very careful as to where they plant, or they just need to kill the smoke as quickly as possible. But like you saw, he's played far back inside of Trophy in a bunker position, so he can just huck those toxic babes from Spar. It's going to be coming down to the dying seconds here. They don't have any control, and you can see the HP of Pluto is going to be dipping away, and it's a 3 versus 1. Now, Outlast have brought this back from a 3 versus 5 to a 3 versus 1, a 2 versus 1, and a 2 versus 0 as Austin clutches up, finds that final kill. Outlast bring it within 1 round, and, well, it seems to be that the defenses are going to reign supreme here on Chalet.
It does really feel like defense is just strong. And I think initially coming to this map, we were like, oh wow, Wildcard up 4-1? It looks like it may be an uneven matchup, but it's definitely that defense. Honestly, I love how comfortable Outlast are in these positions. That player on the side of Maestro just holding that power position, making sure nobody comes in through that door, is able to plant. All the players in Outlast, as I said in the pre-show, They're friends. They've been playing together for a long time, even if they haven't all been on this roster for a long time. And because of that, they trust each other. They trust each other's positions and how they play. And because of that, they're able to play in these really weird positions that Wildcard don't necessarily expect. And as we saw in the beginning of that round, they were able to answer back after they lost the first 2 picks, even into 3-3. And because they had that 3-3 half, Wildcard, not only did they not have the players, they didn't have the utility or map control to clear out up top, so they had to do somewhat of a, front forward push right through the breach into dying. And with those 3 players, especially that Maestro on that power position, were able to just completely shut it down. And Outlast just 1 round away from tying it up.
And if Outlast can do as well as Wildcard did on their defenses, they will be looking really good. But here we go. Once again, Riot finding a lot of value with the Brava drone. Already 2 cameras being hacked, potentially a third if he can get that default camera. Look at that from Riot. Excellent value on that Brava drone. And he's got another one available to him as well. Might even be able to find more of those evil eyes, more of those black eye cams. And Outlast, if they aren't aware of the fact that those have been hacked, they could come back and bite them later on.
It's just about these power positions. As we saw, before, Riot getting a lot of utility in the span of 15 seconds, but it just didn't result enough. And it really goes to show, it doesn't matter how much utility you have. We're not in 2020. It does come down to those gunfights. And with a minute so far, it's a lot slower of a start of a round for Wildcard so far. But nonetheless, they have 3 players on the side of Library, and because of that, they're going to be doing a more direct push. But it's actually Fractured and Dry to lose health. Why Yub? Outlast just completely shutting down this attack. Wow. I thought that was going to be just a complete shutdown onto that player on the side of Zonky. Well, he is shut down. Wildcard find themselves in a 2v4 with half the round left. Definitely not how they planned that. As I said before, Outlast just completely trusting each other in these positions, and because of that, they're able to hold these positions. It's really difficult for Wildcard to push them out, and that's why we're in this 4-2 deficit.
Yeah, they have very little map control to work with, but they do have Teddy, who's just gone for broken. He's vaulted in the game's window. He's just working his way in. He's got the lineup on the Poa, who's just situated on the blue stairs. And he's going to find another one, even us out into a 2 versus 2. I don't know if Capsule has rotated back upstairs to try and find that, but no, he's just worked his way into the site, found another kill, and left it in a 2 versus 0 now, as somehow Wildcard come back and win that round, and it looked all for naught. A 4 versus 2 turns into a Wildcard win, a beautiful clutch by those 2 attackers.
I looked away. How? I looked away for like 1 second. That is insane. Outlast just, honestly, that was a round they should not have lost. That is a mood killer. That is a morale killer right there. And if I'm Outlast right now, I'm now on the back foot. Even though you're still on defense, that's just a round you should not have lost. While, sure, Wildcard did have utility, they did have intel, and about a minute to a minute 30 left, just play trades, just play picks. It's just a situation if played correctly. And honestly, not to say, I know everything, I can play every situational correctly, but a 4-2 situation with about a minute to a minute 30 left, if you play trades, it is a very easy situation to win, but they were not aware of the position of those last 2 wildcard players. And as I've said before, in order to win defense, you just have to wedge your way in between the defensive hold, in between the intel, and Outlast not having a whole lot of intel, and because of that, it just resulted in those 2 wildcard players just being able to squeeze through those line of sights, find those initial picks to put themselves back in the round, which eventually resulted in them only 1 round away from serious point.
What confused me a little bit was when Vipoa died on the blue stairs. To me, there's no way he should have been unready for that gunfight with Teddy, because of the fact that when Teddy got his first kill to make it a 3 versus 2, it was on a player inside of sight when he vaulted in the game's window. So if Outlast was communicating that properly, Vipoa should have been ready and said, hey, there's 1 person in games, I don't know where the second one is, but I know there's 1 player in sight. Which is why I'm a little bit confused as to how that kill was able to happen, and there's Capsule to find another kill for Wildcard, give them the man advantage, and remember, they're looking for match point here. Outlast need to find another kill and need to bring this round back. Otherwise, they could be staring down the exact same scoreline that they actually won last week, and this could turn into a 7-3 very quickly if they can't come back.
Honestly, it just looks like Wildcard right now is just really trusting their plays, trusting their players to just go in and kill. A lot of the time on attack, when you do lose those initial gunfights, when you do lose those initial entries, it's because you're not fully believing in yourself. You're like, oh, I don't know if I want to push in this position. I'm not sure if there's a player. And then you have other players like Wildcard, like the player on the side of Bri, just walking and saying, okay, I know where this guy is. I'm just going to trust my intel and just go in and kill him. And because of that, you resulted the first pick by Poa. While he does get traded back, Wildcard at a 4v3 advantage right now. You do still have a player upstairs on the side of Library, but Teddy and Wildcard have all the positioning, all the intel and utility, able to push this last player out, but they don't necessarily have a drone. It's actually Zonky to have a drone on to that Wildcard player over on Piano. You have a player from Outlast roaming back down, and it's Zonky to actually get another pick. Even out 3-3 and Wildcard are going to have to deal with this position, but they just can't. Zonky continuing to shut it down, and Bipola following it up, and now it's all up to Teddy. And honestly, just it's the lack of utility, right? Lack of intel. They just don't know where these players are. And with Wildcard, they just start to dry swing. As you saw there, Teddy just dry swinging into Zonky with no intel. Zonky having all the intel. He knew exactly where he was in that position already. While Wildcard initially had a great start of the first round. They even had intel on that first player in basement. It was that late round droning that just wasn't really successful for them.
That mezzanine position outside of library is so hard to
Yeah,
clear right now.
it is.
Because
It
of the
is.
fact that you typically see shields, you see mirror windows when she's unbanned, you see Warden sit up there and deny all of the flashbang and all the smoke utility that you try to throw in. We saw a million flash grenades, it seemed like, being thrown in that area last round, but it was all for naught because of the fact that you had that Warden on the board. And like you saw, Zonky able to hold down that position, able to find so many kills even when Outlast was on the back foot, and because of the fact that they'd never cleared him out, they weren't able to get other control. They had App just work his way into the site for a second, but because of the fact that he didn't have control from above, Wildcard didn't have that control, he couldn't play in the site. He couldn't stay there because of the fact that it was not safe. And that's why that position is just so powerful and so crucial for the attack to clear out. And whenever we see they don't, like I said, it's so damning for them.
A lot of teams, it doesn't matter if you're T4, T3, T2, or T1. Defense is really hard. I wouldn't necessarily say we're in a utility meta, but it's up to these attacking teams to play together. Matter of fact, Noki, a player on G2, even said that attack isn't necessarily that hard. You just have to play together and be on the same page. And right now, when Wildcard is on the same page and identify and get this utility, they're able to win rounds. But when you have players doing solo pushes based off no intel whatsoever, no drone intel, they get picked off. So Wildcard, what they need to do if they want to put themselves on match point right here, is they just need to slow down a little bit, which they are doing right now. They're slowing down, getting rid of the utility that Outlast has, and now Austin, without that utility, not only that, now he has to worry about the actual intel that Wildcard has on him. He's in a very hard position. He might have to fall back very soon, but yet again, we've continued to see every time on Kitchen this top 4 hold, but we haven't actually seen how Wildcard is going to deal with it, and Wildcard actually dealing with it by going right into Solarium, but it doesn't matter because Yuv not being droned out, these drones not coming in, and because of that, your first pick, and now your IQ is now gone.
It seems to be a common theme in this game that these teams are just relying more on their overall gun skill than actually gaining information. You mentioned a lot in the first half where Outlast had a lot of drones left and they weren't using them, or they just got them used in weird spots and didn't actually use them to gain correct information. But there's another kill from Zonky before Wildcard traded back into a 4 versus 3. What a shot from you, long range with one of the worst guns in the game. The UMP reigns true and gives Wildcard the 4 versus 2 disadvantage. But Teddy, look at this, just working his way into the site. They have the pings on the Maestro. He's getting shot from long range, however, and it's all up to Riot in the 1 versus 4. But a huge 2-piece from him makes it a little bit more manageable. He's got a minute to work with, and I don't believe he's got anybody on the top floor to worry about. He's going to have to isolate out these 1v1s, and he's going to have to do it fast, however, because if he stalls out, he's going to run out of time very fast. And look at this, Outlast playing together. That's something I really like to see here.
40 seconds left. Riot he has a drone. Not only does he have a drone, but he also has that Maestro cam in sight. Both these players actually playing off-site with the smoke. He surely can be able to go through. Gordon, his glasses not coming in yet. Riot going down to the plant. Both players on the side of Outlast have identified this, but they're not able to take him down. Riot now in a 1v2 post-plant situation with 40 seconds left. He may not be aware of the player to the right, and yes, it's Austin to shut him down to tie up 5-5 for Outlast.
I'm a little bit surprised about how that round played out because of the fact that we saw Wildcard actually do a good job of taking control of the top floor, but then they just kind of fed their bodies in, and then they ended up having that 4 versus 2 disadvantage, like I mentioned. And then because of that, they weren't able to actually utilize that top floor control they finally got. And while he did get the plant down, like we said, it was a 1 versus 2. He wasn't able to cover all the angles at the same time. And, well, Outlast, 5-5 now after what was a really slow start for them on the attack. They've brought it back on the defense, and they could honestly put themselves on match point here. I would not be surprised if we see that. And it's the Lord. We've got Austin playing the Tachanka as we head down to Wine Cellar once again.
I really like that pick. You know, if you're not actually too close to, you know, the competitive scene, or maybe you don't just have that, you know, mindset of a competitive player, you may look at Tachanka as a troll pick. But his actual ability to shoot fire from his grenade launcher is so useful for that late round when players on the side of Outlast will be trying to actually execute on the site, or not Outlast, but Wildcard rather, when they try to execute on the site. If Outlast can efficiently deny them time and force Wildcard to actually go for a site execute in, say, 30 to 25 seconds, that fire is going to burn up so much time and put Wildcard in a very bad position. But it's going to be up to Wildcard to efficiently use their drones. The round before, we saw them just honestly dry peeking players on the side of Outlast, not using that drone utility a whole lot. While they did have a good idea of what they wanted to do on their overall push, when they actually went to execute, they didn't have that drone intel to back it up, and because of that, they lost that man disadvantage really early on. It was all up to Teddy in a really bad situation. 2v1, which he could have won easily, but he just didn't have enough intel. That player actually swinging to his right on the side of Maestro. Honestly, this game in the rounds are just coming down to whether a team has info. Both on defense and attack. If you don't have info, you're not going to run the round.
And there's a few things that I like about this round by the attacking team. You've got Bride playing on that Capitao. It's going to be really good, especially because of how this site plays out. If Wildcard decide they want to plant in Snowmobile, you can use to cut off angles from Blue and Connector. And even then, you've got the Ram as well. Very good for taking control and actually denying control inside a fireplace. You can make it so hard for players inside of Wine Cellar to actually play safely and deny said plant if you choose to do it in Snowmobile. There's a lot of good things, like I said, about this round for Wildcard. The question is, can they make good use of their time and actually make it so they can actually execute? That's been something that we have seen a lot where the team cannot do it, mostly because of the fact that the defense has been absolutely dominant. And I have to think that that won't change, as for the moment, we haven't seen much from Wildcard. They seem to be stalling out, regardless of the fact that they've done some good things. You saw those rammed gadgets working their way into Fireplace, like I've aforementioned.
If they don't clear these roamers out quick, they're going to have to hit site with 30 seconds left with a Fenrir, a Tachanka, and a Tabaru on site. All these players are playing on site. And if they have to hit the site, which they're actually looks like they're going to be hitting the site with 50 seconds left, the Tubarão actually not on that side of the map, so they're going to be able to get this wall open efficiently. And Tachanka coming in play, denying some time with 40 seconds left. Wildcard has put themselves in a really good position to try and waste Outlast's utility, so in that last 20 seconds, Outlast won't have the utility to actually deny the plant. It's going to be up to those gunfights.
It'll be one of those 20 seconds executes once again. The fire raining in from the Tachanka, but the plant's going down from Riot. It's a 5 versus 5. Fire all throughout the Wine Cellar site. Here we go. Nobody in position. There we go. It's a 5 versus 5 post plant. This is exactly what you want to see. The first picks come out. It's down to a 4 versus 3, still favoring the defense, however. But the trades just continue to rain in. Bipolar with a double. A nice shot from Bry. Puts him on a 12 kills now. It's all up to Austin. The Tachanka, not even using the LMG. It's a 1 versus 1. The Tachanka versus the Ace. Match point on the line. He's going to go with the defuse. Pros don't fake. But he does fake in this situation, trying to make sure that he doesn't get challenged when he comes for this defuse. He's going to go for the reload here. The swing comes in and he wins it. Austin wins it out in the 1 versus 1 and gives Outlast match point when they seem to be so far back. They've brought it back. They have done it. They are now 1 round away from winning their first round of the second qualifier.
Risk versus reward. That was one of, in my opinion, the most risky plays Austin could have done, but one of the most brilliant plays. I'm getting loud just because I just didn't expect a play like that. In that situation, 15 seconds left, he understood, oh, okay, I know where this player is. He's in box, but I don't know exactly where he is. So he shoots that fire, not to deny space and give him time to defuse, but to actually bait out that ace into a swing, which that Tachanka was ready for and eventually won. That was just honestly a great play and a great 1v1 situation played by Tachanka. And while Tachanka did use his actual fire canisters to deny the plant, he used it to actually give him the favor in that 1v1. And honestly, just a great play and a great save from Outlast.
They now are 1 round away from sweeping Wildcard 2-0 in the qualifiers. They could play again, however, later on, if that comes down to it in the closed qual portion, but it's going to be a lot easier for the whichever team wins to actually make close qualifiers because, like I mentioned earlier on, with how many teams we have, every win counts. You need to get as many wins as possible. Even 1 loss might not be enough. I don't know exactly off the top of my head how that would all play out mathematically, but I know for a fact that you need to get as many wins as possible. I mean, that's kind of a dumb moment, but you know, it's worth saying. It still counts, but we're going to head to bar. Outlast trying to secure this 7-5. Do not want to go to overtime. They want to put this game away as quickly as possible, potentially have some time off before their next game. But Wildcard, they are trying to bring us to overtime. They're trying to make sure that they can still pull out this victory. What is the key for success in this round? We've seen these teams struggle to attack bar.
The key to success is just not only using your drone and your intel, but first of all, getting that, but then actually playing off of it. Don't just send a drone in and say, okay, there's a player in top mez. Send utility in or send a player. We've seen time and time again players sending in these Flores drones, sending in these traditional drones, and just actually not even resulting in anything. And it just comes down to that last 45 seconds when either they lose a pick and they're forced to actually get something. And it's Yuv to take out Teddy. That is a big pick. While Teddy is on the scoreboard, his utility on the side of those Bs are now gone. It's going to make it a lot more difficult to push out these players on the extended hold upstairs by library and mez. And with a lot of utility gone, you only have 3 flashes and 2 smokes, no nades. It's going to be relatively difficult to actually push out this shield player on top blue.
Yeah, but the Warden falling cap, that's going to be a big pick. No more Warden glasses. It's going to make it a little bit easier for them to use those smoke grenades, like you mentioned. They don't have a lot of them, but they're going to be very impactful when it comes in. And if this Flores drone can get it, there we go. That's the shield gone on the back staircase. Oh, it's going to have to rotate out. And now Wildcard look to have some more control. They're going to have to work their way in. But they've done some good things. They have a minute to try and work these vertical angles, and they're going to do just that. They're going to find Vipoa. It's going to be the man advantage now for Wildcard. They need to convert this down to the bottom floor. They need to convert this onto the site and get this plant down. But the question is, where are they going to focus their execute? They have so many different players and so many different angles still to worry about. The next step is going to be to try and send this Bravo drone in, apparently, and they're going to try and see what utility they can find. And remember, there is still a Valkyrie on the board, so if those black eye cams haven't been dealt with, they're going to be feeding a lot of information to the defense as to where this attack execute is going to come from. And look at this. Wildcard might be stalling out just a little bit here. They don't seem to have a dedicated way into the site, but there you go. They're going to get the down on the site player. The trades are going to come in, however, and it's going to be a 3 versus 2, as there you go. There's the confirm from Cap. And on the cross, it's going to be a 1 versus 3 now. It looks like overtime might be on the cards, and indeed, Riot will shut him down from the front door of Fireplace. And Wildcard have said, we are not done yet. We're going to have 3 potential rounds of overtime to settle who wins this round 1 matchup.
If you're wondering who Austin is, it's Burnt Turkey. That is your answer. But one thing I want to touch on is Austin's position. While it was a 3v4 eventually turning into a 2v3, Austin on that Legion was playing in kitchen and essentially kitchen hallway, switching between both positions, and he was holding a very powerful position. But the thing is, Wildcard identified, okay, while he is holding this, we can kind of just I wouldn't say ignore him, but shut him off and just honestly adapt our attack away from him and focus on these two players. And essentially, in that scenario, they made it what was a 4v3 into a 4v2 on site. And I really love that adaptation and just overall realization from Wildcard, because that was a very powerful position from Austin. Not necessarily a good play, because while he did have a lot of control onto main, he eventually cut himself off from his teammates in sight. Wildcard identifying that, eliminating that threat, not only by just killing him, but just kind of ignoring him, and resulted in them pushing themselves into overtime. And now Wildcard, while they did push themselves into overtime, they have to win at least one attacking round.
Yeah, Outlast are going to be on that favored side. We saw back-to-back 4-2 halves on the defense, so they're going to be very much favored heading into the season. I believe this is the first time we've seen the castle being brought out. It's going to be Yov using that operator, and we're going to head to Kitchen now for the first round of overtime. I like this read by Outlast. They're going to use that castle to try and secure their defense on the top floor as much as possible. Try and make it as hard as possible for Wildcard to gain any control on the top floor, an area that we've seen the attack struggle with so far through the first 12 rounds. It's been one of the biggest struggles, is trying to gain that top floor control on this site. And for Bar as well, that situation does apply, but of course we're not on Bar. And we've seen Wildcard utilize the Brava a lot. I don't believe they're going to get as much value this time, as you saw one of the Brava drones get destroyed early on. What we've seen, I believe it was Cap, or maybe it was Petty, I don't remember. But we saw him get multiple Maestro Evil Eyes in previous rounds. So utilizing that and destroying that Brava drone is a big read from Outlast to start things off.
Wildcard applying pressure to this top floor while outside the map. They've applied a lot of pressure, but Outlast not really being moved out of their positions, while they've used a lot of utility on their own and gotten rid of a lot of utility on the side of Outlast. They haven't been able to essentially push these players out of their positions upstairs, and because of that, halfway into the round, while you have gotten rid of a lot of utility, got a lot of intel on where these players upstairs are playing, you haven't essentially done anything. You haven't pushed these players out, and you haven't put yourself in a better position. And not only that, by Poa also playing on the opposite side, essentially can just swing and get a free kill, and that's exactly what he does. Yov following it up, and Wildcard, while they had a decent setup, they just didn't really try to actually get anything off of it, and because of that, they now find themselves in a two-man deficit.
And being in a deficit, it's going to make it even harder for them to try and get this top floor control, and they're not even going to be able to find that kill. Rai is going to be able to persist. He doesn't have any toxic babes left, however, so that's going to be a little bit of an advantage for Wildcard if they can get in position to get this plant down. The swinging on the Solar is going to come in, and Riot going to be down from long range by the M590. The vault him, the trophy is not going to go well at all. Austin shuts him down, and it's all up to Teddy to try and prevent a flawless round for Outlast in the first round of overtime. They're looking to outlast the competition and send us to overtime match point. There you go. Zonky will shut it down from the top floor all the way into the basement staircase. And Outlast regained match point, just now one round away from starting this qualifier off 1-0.
Outlast about to do what they exactly did last week, but not enclosed the first match of this qualifier. That's definitely what you want to do, because Wildcard or Outlast is one of their better opponents. Not to say they're going to have an easy time going forward, but beating Wildcard will definitely make your overall bracket run and your Swiss run going into closed a lot easier. You want to things with quals like this is you play so many best of ones, you play so many games, you play for so long. So the less rounds you have to play, getting these better teams out of the way firsthand early into the tournament will be better and result in an easier time, because you won't have to stress as much going in. And honestly, that's what these quals do come. As you saw last week, we saw, I believe it was SPL play 2 best of 3s in the span of 6 hours. All 3 maps, 6 maps. It's just very, I wouldn't say frustrating, it's just very exhausting for players, especially going into closed. So getting rid of this opponent early, not having to worry about them in a best of 3 going on later on, you may have to. But Wildcard going back into this game is going to be looking to even it out on defense, going to the exact same site we just saw them try to attack. Actually, rather, they tried to attack Kitchen, but they, opted to go to Bar Gaming, which nonetheless is, in my opinion, equally as favored in the side of the defenders. But yet again, Outlast, it's going to be up to them trying to win these late round executes if they want to take themselves and take this map.
This was the site that Outlast struggled mightily on in the first half. They got flawless in round number 1 on this site, and then they struggled in round number 5 when they attacked it for the second time. Make that round number 4, excuse me. Round number 4 and round number 1. They only found 2 total kills through the 2 different times that they attacked this site. It's really a struggle for Outlast. They need to make sure that they are much faster on their attacks. They do have the Flores this time, so it's going to be a little bit easier for them to try and clear out that backstairs position to blue. But the question is, will they stall out like we saw them do so many times? As Wildcard have very bunker positions on these different areas. You could see they've got the Wamai on the board to try and stall out any utility, but a lot of flash grenades on the board as well. You've got 6 in the pocket of Poa and Yub. Question is, with those is, are they going to actually utilize them correctly to try and clear out that backstairs position, or will we see them stall out again? Goose, it's not looking good for them because Outlast haven't really done much.
They've gotten plenty of backside map control, but yet again, Teddy in this power position on top of Mez, and throughout this whole map, Outlast has not been able to deal with it whatsoever. And on one round away, Teddy is, in my opinion, what stands in front of them and in front of the round. And as I say that, Teddy is actually taking out Zonky, taking him out. That is a really good play. That is the first time they actually take Teddy out in this position when he does play it. And now, Wildcard in a 4v5, in Outlast having complete top control. This is the best position they've had on this round attacking this site.
Just under a minute now. It's about 55 seconds for Outlast to try and work their way into the site. Like you said, this is much better for them. They've actually gotten control of the top floor. They've actually started to work their way down to try and convert it into the site. And there's a second kill. The Poa is able to shut down Pluto. And Outlast are looking very good to try and shut this down 8-6. They need to finish converting this onto the site. But they haven't dealt with Bry, who's just situated inside of the closet, inside of the connector. They have the drone information on him, though, so they will know where he's at when they go for this execute. Riot just situated inside of the bar, ready to watch these hatches when the drop does come in. But look at this, Outlast, they have the Grim, they have different utility on the board to try and open the execute. They're just in the site, but a trade. Riot comes in, makes it a 3 versus 3, and the Wildcard defense is coming to life. It's shutting it down. Wildcard have brought it back. It's all up to Austin to try and keep the game alive, and he's shut down by Capsule. We will go to round 15 in round number 1 of the Spring Burst qualifier number 2. What a game to start things off.
Yet again, on the map that Outlast continues to struggle attacking, they lose not due to roamers, not due to that early extension held by Wildcard, but to that late round execute and the lack of drone intel. As you saw, we saw that player on the side of Frost sitting behind a bar was not droned out. While they did have intel on the player in stock, with the Grim Bees coming out, they never droned out that Frost, and because of it, 2 players from the side of Outlast walked in, and that Frost player was like, easy picket, barbecue chicken, and just took them out. It is a continuous problem that has been staying with Outlast this entire map, and they for now, are not going to be able to figure it out because their last round of this map, of this series, will be on defense, while intel is still very important. Not as important as attacking. Rai bringing out that IQ, You've bringing out that Fenrir yet again. Zonky picking up his stat line and going to be holding this top Mez and top blue power position that they just attacked the round before.
Hang on. Backtrack a second. What did you say? What was that little jingle that you just said?
Which one?
The one where you were like, I don't remember. My mind just blanked. Never mind. We'll move forward. It was funny, and then I was like thinking of it, and then I just lost it. So we'll get into the round now.
Yeah, I apologize. I'm casting with Joe Biden, everybody.
Hey, I'm not that old. I know, I'm a really old 18. My bad, guys. Okay, we'll head into round number 15, and we'll start things off with a bang as Vipoa jumps out the window, takes down Teddy. That is a big opening pick to get. That's no more Flores. That means it's going to be so hard for Wildcard to deal with that very shield that you see him retreat to. They have very little utility left other than the Ash to try and deal with that. And Wildcard now on the back foot for the remainder of this round. They have struggled to attack almost as much as Outlast has. And I have to feel like with just 2 minutes to go, it's going to be favoring the defense mightily. Now, maybe there is a Gone 6 in the back pocket of the Buck, but other than that, there's not going to be much to deal with and clear out these bunker positions that you see. I mean, you've got the player on Mezzanine as well. We've seen Donkey do very well from that spot in previous rounds. He clutched a 4v2. back in round number 8, if I'm not mistaken. So, question is now, what is Wildcard planning to do to clear these people out?
It honestly just looks like they're just trying to flash and hope the players overswing and become overzealous. And the only player that's going to be able to clear that shield is Ash. But the problem is, Ash is not going to be able to be put into a position where they can clear this utility because she is your main fragger. Riot and Bri following it up, as I just said. Now they even out to 3-3, and it looks like Bri just kind of walked through, not even needing to remove that shield, while the two players were distracted with library window that enabled Bri to just walk in, but you having the intel on this player outside, just not being able to find the shots, and with 50 seconds left, we find ourselves and the teams in a 3-3 deficit. Not a whole lot of utility for the side of Wildcard, and as I say that, Capsule not aware of that player on the side of Valkyrie, and he wins it. It's actually a trade to the two players in 30 seconds left. It's all up to Brian Wright behind these players on the side of Juve and Austin. It's a 1v2, a 1v1 now. All up to Juve in this 1v1 with 30 seconds left.
Juve has the advantage here. He's got the HP, but Bri has that really good gun. The G36 is so very deadly nowadays. Juve just situated inside of the connector. He's going to go for the swing. Here comes the swing into the connector. It's a ring around the Rosie, around the reinforcement, and Bri wins it! Wildcard win the attack when it matters most, and they will start off the spring burst for Xenon 1-0. What a round, what a game. Bri with the clutch when it matters most.
Outlast could not play our gaming. They might have won a round, but nonetheless, they just had trouble, whether it was defense, whether it was attack. I think it was just the power, but you are playing them or you have to clear them out. Outlast, it was just a problem with them, and Wildcard striking back after losing to them in close qualifiers last week. That's not out. These players are not out. It was only the first game, but Outlast now down a map. While they did play their best opponent, they still do have to win a lot more games. As we said, there's 54 teams. You're going to have to go near flawless if you want to go to closed.
And it's not going to get much easier. There's a lot of good teams in this bracket. You've got like True Synergy Gaming off the top of my head. You've got the Temper rosters, just some other really good squads. I know Temper's had a little bit of issues lately with keeping their roster together, but there's still some good players on there. You've got those pub stacks that can always surprise people. But Wildcard looking really good so far. That was a great game to start things off. Goose, you and I will be back. But first, we've got a short break. We're going to have round 2 right after this.
That was